What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS first look for week 13. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined once again by one of the true OGs of the Wise Take Nation, Mr. Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref Joey. What's happening?
Not much. Just hanging out. It's Tuesday night. Kids are gone for the night, so we'll start a little earlier. Can't believe it's already week 13, and we're talking about week 13, and we're not even done with week 12 yet. There's still one more game to go on this weird season where there will be an NFL game on every day of the week if they play tomorrow. So it's a crazy year.
Yeah, definitely wild. I think overall in this season of 2020, like, it's got like the same vibe. Don't get me wrong, it's better to have than not have, but the COVID thing and the lack of fans and all that, like, it's doable, right? Beggars can't be choosers. We were at a period where we had nothing, but it's different. It just feels different. Everything about it, it's different.
Yeah, I understand that. Unfortunately for me, it's the days of me being able to watch all day Sunday football and be able to notice those little intricacies are just over right now. So any type of football I can watch is good,
Yeah. No. Listen, hey, I will take it, and I'm enjoying the season, and it's definitely like, I'm just happy we have it, and I appreciate the NFL players for putting what they're putting at and dealing with what they're dealing with, so that we can have the entertainment and we can make money, obviously. But it's one of them years that that, like, your kids and like my future kids and all that kind of stuff, like, they'll learn about one day in history class, and we're gonna be those old fucks like, oh yeah, we were there. It was a weird NFL season, Anyway, nation, what's going on? Shout out to Patio Joe on giving me the heads up and giving us the early start. If you haven't hit the like button already, guys, please hit that like button. Really helps us out. Shout out to Stephen B in the YouTube chat, always encouraging the thumbs up. Josh Jennings, what's happening? David Torrey says, got my mind on the money and the money on my mind. Classic line. Love it. I'm feeling the same way. I gotta say, Joe, before we hop into week 13, we obviously have to review a little bit of week 12. Before we get into the listener league contest, I'm actually like, so I profited like minimally, right? Like $200 minimum profit. And I've never been so disappointed. And granted, as a GPP player, like, I take a lot of L's, obviously, but I was never so disappointed than I was after week 12, man. I had 100% Tyreek Hill. I had Mahomes or Brady on most teams. There was just so much. I had Mike Evans was my main core play from the Tampa side. And for me to only end up profiting $200, I was bummed, man. I felt like there was an opportunity waste. There was a lot of duds I was on, like Darren Waller, Brian Hill. I got the Ito Smith tilt. So there were a couple things, but the biggest issue was not having Derrick Henry in any of my teams. That was the biggest issue. And shout out to Fritz, because Fritz was in the Slack trying to tell people to play him. Now he is a bit of a Titans homer, but he does know his team.
The thing about Henry is, and I think it even hurts him more on DraftKings, is that he doesn't catch passes. So I think your natural response is, well, he doesn't catch passes, I'm just going to go to another running back around his same, range, because he's going to at least, catch more passes. It's hard to predict touchdowns. So I just think, like, the natural, like, you're just like, well, he doesn't catch passes, so I'm not going to play him. On FanDuel, it's a little different. Now, he was priced right around Chubb last week, and it just seemed like Chubb was just in a better spot. I mean, Chubb did well. I mean, he was like probably the number 2 running back on the week. So it's not like he didn't do well. It's just that when you get those 4 touchdowns like Henry had, or was it 3 or 4? It's hard to beat that. But the thing is that you can never really predict it either. I mean, last night DK Metcalf goes 10 for 177, but he didn't get in the end zone. It's so crazy. You think he would get into the end zone, but it's just touchdowns are just tough. And I think that he's got a great schedule coming up, and so we're going to be playing him a lot. But they've priced him up this week, so he kind of missed it. I think that you're right. I will say that it's the one player I think that we missed. I missed on him because I just looked at Chubb and I thought he'd just going to be a better play. And the other guy I missed on before Sunday was Stephon Diggs. I mean, I thought he was going to have a way better game. That game was just weird in general. I think it didn't live up to the hype. But it was like we were kind of on a lot of the right stuff. I mean, we had the under sort of on the Raiders. We knew the Raiders weren't going to do well. Like we thought Waller was going to do it, but it just was a weird Sunday. Like every Sunday is weird these days, but it just we had the stack with the Chiefs was the way to go. So you had to do that right.
And that is the part that kills me, man. I was so focused on that game. And to not to just be wrong on the subtle bringbacks. I think sometimes that's like sometimes I'll get locked in on a game or a spot in a tournament, and I'll be so locked into that specific spot that I may like try to cut corners a little bit on how I fit them in, and definitely just something to improve on. That being said, trying to alter how I say certain things. Let's take a look at the Listener League. Shout out to TrueGamer23H. Hit us up either on Twitter at @wise_take. If you're a member of the Wise Take Nation and you're in the Slack, hit me up in Slack. That's fine. Claim your $25. Congrats on the win. Patrick Mahomes, Naheem Hines. He played Breida, who scored better than Brian Hill by like 1 point, but similar build to what I had. I had Hill in the spot. Tyreek Hill, obviously, who you kind of needed to take first in anything this week. Who was 47% owned in our contest, and that makes me happy because he was in my core. He was the first player in my core plays article, so I am happy to see him 47.6% owned. Devontae Parker was only 9.5% owned in that contest, Joe, and against the Jets. Against the Jets, man. We did talk about attacking the Jets secondary, how bad they are. Alluding, little preview, Raiders are playing the Jets this week. Just saying, we'll get there. We will get there, Joe. Keelan Cole kind of laid the egg, but I think you could have gotten away with that in most tournaments because of the pricing. Travis Kelce loved the triple stack in tournaments. I always love maximizing the upside. Kelce was popular in this contest because so was Mahomes. The Mahomes stack was 42.9. The triple stack was a combined over 40% owned in this one. And you know what, Joe? Gallman, 38% on Gallman. I know you were big on Gallman, Joe, all week. That was one mistake I made. There was some of the value news I bid on real hard, and I kind of pivoted off some of those guys that I was on earlier in the week, right? Like I had Hines, so I didn't need Gallman as much. He faded Dalvin Cook, so he obviously didn't have Henry in this team, but he faded Dalvin Cook, and that was really that was like square one, right? You were in good shape if you faded him off the bat, Saints defense,
and I mean he didn't do it on this, but I said if you fade Cook, Jefferson was a must.
Right.
And Jefferson came up big with 2 touchdowns too.
He did. And
that was actually the play. That's what you should have done in every lineup was fade Cook and go with, Henry and Jefferson, and that would have done all the money.
Yeah.
Looking back on it.
Oh yeah. And then the Saints defense, obviously, which was a good play because Denver had no quarterback. That was just a very interesting thing to watch. Shout out to me real quick, Joe. I finished second in the contest. That's right. Finished second. There we go. Your boy Eckler, man.
I know. Oh, dude, man. I'm so happy I got him back on my main fantasy team. And I you know how you feel like you're the team that's getting healthy at the right time. Yeah. Like you don't want to jinx yourself, but right. I really, really got a squad put together with Eckler, Chubb, and my receivers are DK, Ridley, Jefferson, Deontay Johnson, and then I have a hard problem. Deebo Samuel is like my 5th receiver, and I can't find a spot for him.
Oh, man.
So,
what a world.
Yeah.
Oh, what a world. All right, moving over to FanDuel. We've got Mr. Sierra Man finishing first. Shout out to him. Again, same thing. Hit me up on Twitter at @wise_take. Doing dirties, all that good stuff. Claim it $25. He had Patrick Mahomes, Wade Gallman, Naheem Hines, Justin Jefferson, Joe. Here it is. Another Cook fade, but this one had Justin Jefferson. who was 36.8% owned in this contest on FanDuel. Devontae Parker again, the Hill-Kelsey combination, and then Austin Eckler with an 18.4. Jets defense, 9 points. Not bad. Not fucking bad for a min-price defense on DraftKings and pretty much min-price.
They were min-price on FanDuel. They were 3,000 on FanDuel.
I actually meant FanDuel. They weren't technically min-price on DraftKings, but they were pretty damn close. Like they were like 21. But yeah, I meant to say min-price on FanDuel. Yeah, for sure. Loving it, man. Loving it. It's we were on a lot of good stuff. Just putting things together was the issue, and these guys were able to put it together enough to win our though I say listen early, so shout out to them. All right, Joe, it's time to move on. It is time to move on.
Week 13.
To Week 13, Joe. And we are going to start things off right out the gate with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. That's right, we're starting hot. We've got a 42 total. The Dolphins currently 11.5-point favorites at home. Joey, talk to me about the Bengals first.
So the biggest question in this game is whether or not Tua's going to play. So I don't really have anything to say about the Bengals. There's nothing that you'd want to play for them. Gio is 5,800. His price is down. If you want volume, I guess he's my favorite play. Boyd is, just a guy now. And there's really nothing redeeming about this offense at all. That's it. I can't really say much.
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess like for now, on a first look, the first thing I consider is the Miami defense. Right, they're at home. Brandon Allen at quarterback. We know they don't have an offensive line, which is one of the reasons that Burrow is in a situation he's in. Shout out to Thorough Joe. Hopefully he's good to go. He looks to be a really good quarterback. Gio Bernard, I don't mind if you were in a situation where you needed the value, simply because he's cheap on DraftKings. You know he's going to get pass game work. Well, you assume he is, right? I don't think he's going to get thrown to any less by Allen. But on DraftKings, maybe with the PPR consideration. And also, Miami, their main vulnerability has been on the ground, right? Or at least over the middle of the field. They've got good outside coverage. But it's just hard to take a shot in any of these receiving options. It really is. AJ Green's 3,100 on DraftKings, man. So they're in play to a degree. But keep in mind the secondary of Miami is fairly decent. Right, I think Boyd would be the one I feel the most comfortable taking a shot on if you want to get cheap and dirty. But I think Gio is the one that's the most interesting as of now. What about the? I know, like you said, we don't know if Tua's playing or not. What are you thinking? Like, give me some if ands.
I mean, I don't know what's going on in the state of Florida. It's like I feel like the entire nation thinks that Fitzpatrick should be the starter right now. Much like in Tampa, taking out Blake Snell in the World Series cost them a chance of winning the World Series, which the Dodgers are the World Series champions. I just want to let everybody know that. So, but my point is that the Dolphins are in the middle of a playoff. They have a chance to make the playoffs this year. They have a chance to win this division. And Fitz gives you the best chance to win. So I'm hoping that he plays this week. If he does, he's a GPP option. And obviously that puts Devontae Parker as a good option too. He'll have a great matchup. He's got to get in the end zone. If he does, he'll have a really, really good game. He's got a great matchup just because the Bengals secondary isn't very good. The other guys I'm not really caring about. I mean, I just maybe Gesicki, but he seems to go with the other guys all the time. I would just stick to a basic, pairing, Fitz with Parker. The running game is just too hard to kind of figure out. If Gaskin's back, which he might be, he's 5,500. I'd maybe look at that too.
Yeah, I agree. If Gaskin's back, he's the play, right? I think regardless of if it's Fitzpatrick, I think he's protected. He should get some pass game work. But either way, you would think the game script is going to favor the Miami Dolphins, even more so if Fitzpatrick does play. And if 2 is the one in, then you know they're going to lean on Gaskin more anyway. So if Gaskin's back and we feel like he's fully medically cleared to go and we think he's going to get like 60% of the snaps or more, I'm comfortable, man, because like you said, we're buying kind of low, especially on FanDuel at 5.5. Parker really depends like on the quarterback. I agree. Right, if it's Tua, I'm not really trying to go there. He's 6'4" now on DraftKings, 6'8" on FanDuel. If it's Fitz, I can consider it, especially in a stack at this point, because now you're spending up. You really want him to go balls out. But yeah, I think Gaskin's the play here with the Miami defense. If anything. Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Minnesota Vikings. We have a 51.5 total. That's gone up 2 points since the open of 49.5. The Vikings are currently 9.5 point favorites at home. That's gone down from 10. We're going to start off with the Jacksonville side, Joe.
Yeah, Jacksonville's coming into Minnesota, and you got to think, we're going to have Mike Glennon again. He didn't look too bad. James Robinson has been, Mr. Dependable all year. Doesn't really have huge games, but he's pretty damn reliable. He's going to get all the, he's been the only running back this entire season that's gotten every carry from their team inside the 5-yard line. So, I think, he's on the cash game list for me at running back. Receivers, we have to see who comes back this week. Chark, obviously, I mean, the Minnesota secondary is very beatable. So Keelan Cole, Chark, Laviska Shenault, those guys, one of them is going to be okay. One of them is going to be a decent play. I think we want Laviska Shenault to go off, but he just doesn't seem to be doing it. Colin Johnson actually had a better game last week than Laviska. But I think you're just throwing darts at those guys. But they could go off. So if you're doing more than, obviously a few teams, I like one of those players because there is some other appeal on the other side too.
Yeah, I think James Robinson may grab some attention on DraftKings at 7,300, being the usage he's got and everything like that. But I do think that the receiving options are more where I'd be looking because of the discounts you're getting on these guys. I understand Mike Glennon is the quarterback, but we also know the Vikings secondary is shit. In fact, the Vikings have given up the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So Glennon is pushing it. I mean, listen, he's 4,800 on DraftKings, and he's in a game with a high total on a slate where we don't have a ton of those high, massively, mega totals. So, it's early. I'll look into it a little bit, but at the very least, I could tell you that I am going to be interested in at least some of these Jacksonville receivers. DJ Chark, 5,400. Keelan Cole, 3,600. I agree with you on Shenault. He just hasn't really, gotten there, but this is the matchup for it. So I'm with you. I think the receiving options here are probably where I'll look first. What about the Minnesota side? Dalvin Cook, who crushed millions of dreams.
Yeah, and he went out with an ankle injury too, so they say he's going to be all right, but obviously, there was a little bit of question mark because FanDuel priced up Madison at 7,300. For GPPs, if you're doing a lot of teams, I don't mind Kirk Cousins. With the guys he's priced around, he has big games and he's got a good matchup. Last 4 games, he's averaged over 20 points at 7,300. That's not too bad. Running backs, obviously Cook. Madison, if he starts, he'll be a real popular play, but I think Cook's going to be okay. But he could be, not 100%. They're still in the playoff hunt. They need this game. And they have a big game next week going into Tampa. So, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I think that we're going to get Thielen back this week. Thielen is a great wide receiver 2, probably one of the best wide receiver 2s on the in the league because obviously we know who the wide receiver 1 is. I'm just kidding. But Jefferson is a good play too. They're priced the same. Obviously if Thielen's not back, that's going to make Jefferson probably a really, really strong cash play because people might just fade Cook this week. But I like both of them. They have a great matchup. We saw what Jarvis Landry did against them. against the Jags. So who's going to be lined up in the slot? Who's going to be moving around? I think both of them would benefit from that. A tight end, I guess you could go there. It's not a really big deal to me. I just Rudolph or Irv Smith, if it's playing, I guess it's fine. I just don't need it because tight end's a wasteland this week. So it's basically Cook, Thielen, or Jefferson.
Yeah, the first thing I think of is this dude burned everybody last week. And now we're in a situation where we have a high game total. Like you said, we expect Minnesota. I mean, not expect Minnesota has to win this game. And now I'm wondering if people, because we don't have as obvious a value, at least yet, I wonder if people will elect to go elsewhere. So I want to keep an eye on the ownership. But I'll tell you what, if I do stack this game, if I make a Glennon stack, it's gonna have Dalvin Cook just because, like, that's one of the benefits of paying down for Glennon is so you can afford a guy like Dalvin Cook. So definitely interested in going back to him. Not very concerned about the injury or anything like that. I think he's good to go. I think his feelings were hurt more than anything else when he fumbled the ball. And then the receiver, sure, I don't mind the stack at all. Like Thielen and Jefferson, we'll see the status of these guys of Thielen. I'm fine with it. The prices don't do anything for me in particular, but again, from a tournament mindset, you're seeing that this game has one of the higher totals on the slate. I think it's like the second highest at the moment. So it's a different slate than what we've seen. Different.
Let me ask you a question here. We got a good question in the chat from Craig. Could Glennon and Johnson have the best chemistry as backups most of the year? Like I think that there's something to, guys that have played on like the practice squad team or the second team all year, and that's all they do. They basically are just throwing the ball to each other. That when they get in a game with each other, he knows where that receiver's going to be. They've run the plays together. There's something to that. I don't mind that at all. That's a good point. What do you think, CK?
I mean, I definitely think there's something to that. The same way when you see a backup quarterback hop in the game and he's not expecting to be in the game, and a lot of times they struggle because they're not used to playing with the ones or the speed of a certain player. There's definitely something to that. There's also like this comfort, right? Because as a backup, you go through things and with certain players, you get comfortable with them. Like we've seen that happen all the time with certain players that'll pop up and nobody kind of knows who they are, but that quarterback does because that quarterback got time with that specific player a lot. So, I think there's more of a trust factor. It's like, yeah, okay, these guys are better players, but you haven't thrown to them all season. You've thrown to this guy, so you've seen at practice the days where you look good with the twos or whatever. You've seen it look good. So I think there is something to that for sure. Next game, Joe. The Nolans Saints, Atlanta Falcons. We have a 45.5 total. That's come down 2 points from 47.5 at open. Saints are 3-point favorites on the road. We're going to talk about Nolans first. These guys just played a couple weeks ago. Taysom did the dirty at his price. This time his price is up. Joe, talk to me about Nolans.
Yeah, I think right now when we start off the slate, Taysom Hill is on the list of quarterbacks I might be using in a cash game setting. I don't want to feel like I'm chasing though. You know what I'm saying? Like the performance 2 weeks ago, man, we saw what he did last week against, a defense on the road. And I realize it's Atlanta, but they've played a little bit better. I would think that Derek Carr is a more competent quarterback than Taysom Hill. And Derek Carr did not look very good last week. Like to me, I think it's an easy fade for Taysom Hill this week at his price. The thing that he does offer is rushing upside, so that I do have to take that in consideration. So, it's a question mark right now to me. Like I'm not so in. I'd have to look more on him, but like I've been reading some things earlier in the week, and some people that I follow are on him, and I'm not feeling it. I look at the quarterbacks around his price. We got Justin Herbert at 7,900. Tannehill at 7,800 is a farce. I don't know if that seems like it's a misprice. But I just don't think, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it with him at that price. Running backs, he's basically neutered Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a GPP flyer right now. You do not want to play him. There's something up. They do not want to give him the ball until Drew Brees is back. I would not play Kamara unless you're doing a lot of lineups. It seems like they're going to have some sort of timeshare with Latavius Murray, try and milk the clock more because they know that Taysom Hill can't get in shootouts. That thus lowers Michael Thomas and everything. You know, Michael Thomas is 7,200. I mean, that's crazy on FanDuel that he's 7,200, which isn't a bad value. You know, it's kind of really they're tempting you into playing him. Tight end position is a wasteland over in there. So, I mean, I could definitely see the Saints D too as another, you know, not a bad option because we know Matt Ryan has not been right either the last few weeks.
Yeah, you know, the price on Taysom is a little more tough to swallow. I don't mind taking shots. I think I'm going to prefer Taysom at home, you know, where he's more comfortable. I know they're still in the Dome, and I know it's Atlanta, and I don't necessarily think that it was Atlanta last week that their defense was like, oh, they looked all high and mighty. They had like 5 fumbles, man. The Raiders just couldn't hold on to the ball. And granted, like I'm not saying like I do think the Falcons defense did play a little bit better than usual, but I think a lot of that was also the Raiders just kind of shit in the bed. But it's not pretty. Like Michael Thomas and Kamara at $7K a piece, you would have never thought on DraftKings you would really ever see that at this point in the season. But here we are. I'm more likely to go for Thomas, like you said. We do see him with Taysom Hill. He does seem kind of locked in to where I'm either throwing it to Thomas or I'm going to run, which was something that we kind of came on too late in the first start. So I'm okay with Thomas. I don't feel great about it. I mean, this game has a 45 total. It's just not all that interesting. Kamara would be the most interesting because I feel like I'm getting a true bargain. Thomas hasn't really posted mega upside all season. Kamara has, you know, at slate breaking weeks, and I have a chance at 7K. But like you said, the type of usage he's getting, it's just not great. It's just not great. Mm-hmm. So something we'll have to circle. I agree. What about the Atlanta side, Joe?
Atlanta side, you know, Matt Ryan is going to be I think personally, like the public will totally shy away from him, and he just, you know, I can't really vouch to play him. I just think he's going to be a very low owned play. So if you want to, like, if you're playing a lot of lineups, you could see the upside if this game gets into a shootout and he actually delivers the ball when he's supposed to deliver the ball. Running backs, obviously, Brian Hill, Gurley, Ito Smith, just now that they're just kind of both sharing, you just don't want any of that. Wide receiver, you know, Calvin Ridley at 8,400 is priced too high, and I'm a Calvin Ridley guy. You look at his game logs, he hasn't gone over 20 points since week 2. So, like, he's at 8,400, that's too much. Even in cash game. You know what I'm saying? I can't pay that. There's other guys at his price. You know, I mean, DK Metcalf is 8,500. Why wouldn't you just play him? You know what I'm saying? Or the inferior receiver AJ Brown to DK Metcalf at 8,200. Calvin Ridley is just priced way too up for his production lately, especially if Julio's out again. If Julio's in, you know, I could see going with a stack or something. I'm not going to find it. And Hurst is in that group where, yeah, maybe he'll fall into the end zone. And once again, I will not be afraid to go right back to Atlanta Falcons defense at 3,500 against Taysom Hill. 2 weeks ago, I did it. They got 6 points in cash games. It'll let you pay up for everything else. I don't mind it at all. They're underpriced. The Falcons defense actually my favorite play of this game just because of its price.
Damn, old as fuck. I mean, I tell you what, if Julio Jones is back, I would assume he's gonna be fairly popular on DraftKings at 6,600. Because even I'm thinking like, man, if he's in 6,600 at home, I'm interested. The Saints' pass defense has looked good lately, and like the Saints have posted double-digit fantasy points over the last like 4 straight games, I think. So the defense is, you know, I'm not trying to, but we know it could be beat through the pass game. We've seen it happen earlier in the season, and even in some of those high-scoring games, they still got beat a bunch. If he's out, I think 7,200 is a little easier to stomach on DraftKings in the cash game scenario. In tournaments, I'm kind of so-so. I think Hayden Hurst right now is probably the biggest standout at tight end, 4K. I would like that more if Julio was ruled out, but the Saints have struggled against tight ends. The Matt Ryan stack is real cheap on DraftKings, 5,600. He's earned that. He's earned that price. It's just it's just weird. It's like both teams, their offenses have just slowed down. We know why on the Saints, and their defenses have played better. It's just very strange, but I don't mind it. But right now, I'm looking for games that I think have more shootout potential, and this one kind of worries me a little bit. Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders, my beloved New York Jets. We have a 47 total, down from 48. The Raiders are currently 7.5. That's right, 7.5 point favorites. That's right. That's right. Over my New York Jets. They are going across the country, Joe. Talk to me about the Raiders coming off it's got to be the worst performance that they've had in all season for sure.
Yeah, I as a Charger fan, I try not to really bag on the Raiders that much because it just sounds like I'm, just a Charger fan. I'm going to hate on them. But every time, you want to buy into them and be like, okay, they have a chance to be a player in the AFC, they roll a dud like they did last week. It's like they only know how to play against the Chiefs, and then they roll a dud like last week. That being said, Derek Carr was very popular. People thought he was going to do great. That means that he's going to be lower owned. That means that he's actually a decent play against a terrible defense. I don't mind it. The running backs, if Josh Jacobs is out, which I'm thinking he might, that's going to open up things for Devontae Booker, which will put him on the cash game list at 6,000. He's got a good matchup. Wide receiver, we were talking about that. I think it's about finding which receiver is going to go off between these guys. I would think if it's anybody, it's going to be Renfro in the slot, even though the other two guys aren't very good either. But Aguilar is like every other week he does something, so maybe this is going to be the week he does it. And Ruggs just hasn't done it all year. So, it's tough to, no matter how good the matchup is, to rely on those guys. And then Waller at 7K being the highest priced tight end. I don't know. I just think this might be the week to pay down at tight end, even though it's an awesome matchup. He had an awesome matchup last week and he did crappy. So, I just can't buy it at all.
So I get worried. Number one, I know last year I made a rule not to play Derek Carr on the road, and then that rule became don't play Derek Carr ever. And it's not even a biased thing, Joe, because so far every time I've targeted against the Jets, or at least over the last couple of weeks where I've really zoned in since their secondary got even worse, I haven't been wrong, bro. Right? We talked about Justin Herbert, what he did the dirty all day, and then we talked about last week Devontae Parker, who went in there and did his thing at a cheap price. So I feel obligated to come here and look, and the only person I feel comfortable, whether you're pairing with Carr or just looking for who's going to score the points, is Darren Waller. He burned me bad last week, man. He did. He burned me real bad last week. But I just don't think I think that was a rock bottom type game for the Raiders. I just don't think. I think variance alone, even if they have even if they're if they bring average level game, they should still be successful against the Jets. Now, the back-to-back road games worries me a little bit because they are playing. What would they play against Atlanta, right? In Atlanta, and now they're all the way up here in New Jersey. So that part worries me a little bit. That I'm just never a fan of the travel stuff, But 5,800 on DraftKings, I agree with you that last week a lot of people were on him and he disappointed, and I think this week people are going to bail, and I'm kind of tempted, man. I'm very tempted to do a Carr Waller and maybe even throw in one of these, Aguilar types, you know what I mean? But I don't know. It's just how I'm feeling, man. It's the Jets, and they're my team, but they're fucking bad. The secondary is really bad. On top of that, the Raiders defense is also shit. And while the Jets offense is shit, at least from a PPR perspective on DraftKings, there are fantasy points. There's been value, tolerable value with the Jets. With that said, talk to me about the New York Jets side, Joe.
Oh, do I have to? The Jets, nothing in the run game, nothing in the passing game. As quarterbacks, receiver Denzel Mims has had a ton of air yards the last few weeks, and he's just going to keep, people are saying he's going to keep going off or might go off. So I guess if you're doing a stack, he'd be the guy I'd want to pair him with, and then Crowder on DK. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's short and sweet, right? Like, Darnold just not been impressed. This is like one of the better matchups we'll have. I think you could just as easily grab exposure to a Crowder or a Mims or a Perriman and just, leave it at that. Those would be the guys that I would be slightly interested in at the moment. But we will dig in because I do think that Carr is going to be on my list, and I'm going to end up needing a Jet bring back. But listen, I could just go Onslaught City and not bring any Jet bring backs. I'd be fine with that too. But I do like the Waller situation, especially if nobody's going back. The Carr Waller, I should say. And with that, we're going to the next game. Here we go. Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans. 51 total, down from 53. The Colts opened up -2.5. They're up to -3. I'm pretty sure the line movement had to do with the Will Fuller news, right? He's suspended for 6 games. We'll get there when we talk about Houston. Joe, talk to me first about the Colts.
Yeah, old man Rivers, 7K. Don't really need it. Running backs, Hines is going to be pretty popular because Jordan Wilkins is banged up. And also, like, if Jonathan Taylor's not back, too, which is possible because he's on the COVID list, we don't know what's going to happen with that. They're thinking he's going to be back. If he is, that's going to cannibalize Hines and just kind of make things muddled. So, heed caution on that one. Receivers, T.Y. Hilton has kind of showed the pulse the last few games. Pittman had a down game. Was kind of pissed off about that, but I'd still go back to them. And then tight end, Burton would be on that list that you would want. And I wouldn't play the defense here because they have some injuries.
Yeah, so the Taylor news is pretty big to me, right? If Taylor's in, I'm nervous to take any of the running backs, even though it's a phenomenal spot. If Taylor is out, I will load the fuck up on Hines, and I'll use Wilkins as a hedge once again. In lineups that don't have Hines, I'll have Wilkins just in case. But Hines looks like he dominated the snaps last week when it mattered and everything like that, so I'd feel the most comfortable with Hines. He seems more game script proof. And again, awesome matchup for running backs against Houston. Of the receivers, Hilton's fine. I'm with you. I go back to Pittman this week if I'm picking one, though. And I do think a game stack is on the table here, so I'm interested. Pittman did disappoint last week, but he did have 9 targets. Only caught 2 of them, which is kind of disastrous. But the 9 targets, it was there. The opportunity was there. Just this didn't work out. So I'd be willing to go back here against a bad defense, bad secondary, all that good shit with Pittman. The tight end situation, Burton just seems very tempting on the cheap, and he looks great. But there's still 2 other guys floating around there that makes me uncomfortable. Talk to me now about Houston, Joe. Do you think? I mean, I would think Brandon Cooks, at least on DraftKings, Brandon Cook should be one of the most popular plays on the slate now that Fuller's gone. What do you think of him and the rest of the Texans?
Yeah, I mean, at 6,500 on FanDuel, I think he's going to be pretty popular. He's got a difficult matchup. Indy had a rough week last week, but I think people will still go there. The public will go there. Obviously, Kiki Kuti and might be a thing, but I remember Kiki Kuti was like chalk last year, and he put up a 0. So I just you don't need him. I think the one play from this game, besides Deshaun Watson, of course, you're going to want to look at is whether or not David Johnson comes back from a concussion. They're hoping that he does. If he does, he's 6,200. Got a good matchup. I don't mind it. And Duke Johnson, the same thing too, catching balls out of the backfield. They're 6,000, so it's okay. We'll see. Hopefully, I think David Johnson, if he comes back, they're just going to give him the full workload again because Duke Johnson didn't really do it in the running game. He had a couple catches and stuff last week, but he had his chance and didn't really do it. But that's it. This game's going to be a weird game because of the Fuller news. But, Bradley Roby being out, you have to maybe look at the passing game, too, of Indy.
Yeah, Watson's really expensive. Him losing Fuller is a big blow. I think one thing we know about Watson is he's got no problem locking into one dude. He had D-Hop for, pretty good amount of time. And he had no problem throwing D-Hop 15 targets a game, 16 targets a game. So I do like Brandon Cooks a lot. I know it's a tough matchup, but Indy does play a lot of zone. So if Houston can game plan for that, if Watson has an idea of what he's doing, he should be able to figure out ways to get Cooks open, even if it's just patches through the zone. And Cooks has already gotten double-digit targets at time this year. So without Fuller, I think we're going to see Cooks get a ton of work. I'm okay with Kuti if you're not playing Cooks or if you're playing them together in a stack. But like you, I have my reservations. We've seen him not get there. I've also remember last year a couple times where he did get there, so I'm okay with it. But Brandon Cooks is like the main one that I'm looking at right now. And DraftKings 5600 just seems too cheap for the situation. And I wonder without Fuller, will Watson throw to the running back a little bit more? That's been a problem, right? Like Duke's been all these great spots, but we like Duke to catch passes, and Watson's just not really a check down guy. Maybe that changes now against a decent defense. I say decent because I don't think they're actually good. But maybe we see them do that. Other option, they throw to the tight ends more, which is definitely a realistic possibility, but there's two of them, and that's a pain in the ass. So it's really Cooks for me, and then we'll kind of pay attention and dig in a little bit, and come Friday on the Y stream and come Saturday when it's article time, we should have a definitive answer on which way we're going. But Cooks for sure is a standout right now. Highest total game coming, Joe. We've got the Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans. We've got a 54-point total, up from 52. Wow. 54, highest on the slip by far. The Titans are currently 5.5-point favorites at home. It opened up at 4. They're up to 5.5. We're going to start with the Cleveland side because they're on the road. Talk to me, Joe.
Yeah, it's weird that would be such a high total with two running
it's
teams.
Tennessee. They do it, man. Their defense is so shitty, and their offense is so efficient. Their offense is so damn efficient. Like they're just so Tannehill is one of the most efficient. Like props to the coach, right, Vrabel. Like he obviously made a huge impact here, and like Tannehill, like I mean, it's like it seems they almost seem like Alabama to a degree. Not their defense, not even close, but their offense is very precise, right? It's very very precise. It just seems like guys are trained well there. It seems like on their offense, guys know where to be. Like Tannehill never seems to panic. He always seems to have a guy, no matter what. It's just, they just seem prepared. I don't know.
Yeah, QB, I'm not gonna want Baker. As for running backs, Chubb at 8,700 is a little pricey, but he's got a good matchup against Tennessee. They're gonna try and run. Hunt at 6,300. He's more efficient with Chubb there. So if you're going to play Hunt, don't be afraid because Chubb's there. Receivers, Jarvis Landry. This is a beatable secondary. As long as the weather's okay, I got Jarvis Landry's going to do just fine. They like throwing to the tight end, so Austin Hooper's on the short list. And the defense, Myles Garrett is back, but that's not enough to get me on them.
Yeah, it seems like a game that you really are gonna want. I agree that the passing attack of Cleveland is not all that attractive. However, when you consider game script, I do expect Cleveland's defense to struggle for sure. And the Cleveland's offense, while I do think they'll have success running the ball, if they don't, they're kind of screwed, right? Like that's been the way you stop Cleveland's offense if you can stop them from running the ball. For the most part, I know last week Landry had a big game. Everything was Ruby trained. But point being, I might have to be open-minded a little bit to him, especially on a week where the quarterbacks don't look all that great in their own spots to begin with. Like this is one of the best spots on the board. The Titans have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks in the league, and they played at the 3rd highest pace. I think that I like Nick Chubb, but I kind of think this could be a Kareem Hunt week if the game script favors what Vegas implies and that Tennessee leads from this game. We know Hunt is by far the preferred pass catcher. So I can see that kind of working, even if you don't like Baker, maybe getting some exposure to Hunt in a Landry or Hunt in a Hooper or something like that. But I have some interest, especially because I think Derrick Henry on the other side will be pretty popular. With that being said, Joe, talk to me about the Tennessee side.
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry will be popular, but they priced him up to 10K on FanDuel. And with Myles Garrett being back, the Browns have been pretty good on the run, against the run. So, I just don't know yet. I think that he'll be fine, but whether he'll get, the 30 that you need or the 25 that you need, that's another story. The guy that I like probably in this game the most is A.J. Brown. Cleveland secondary, we know, is bad. And A.J. Brown comes from Ole Miss. He was the number 2 receiver at Ole Miss, where DK Metcalf was the number 1. So, I mean, he's been a top 5 receiver since he came back from his injury a few weeks ago. So, A.J. Brown at 8,200 is my favorite play from the Titans. Maybe I'm a little bit different, not going to Henry, but I feel like they're going to throw the ball a little bit more this week, and then nothing to tight end.
I mean, yeah, the Browns have been for the most part of the season, they've been a pass funnel defense, getting a good player back. So I agree with you. I think Henry's very expensive. I actually do think I prefer Cook. If they're the same price on DraftKings, Derrick Henry's 9.2, Cook is like 9.5. I prefer to find a way to get to Cook. When you consider matchup, everything else, I do like the passing game here. A.J. Brown, Tannehill. I don't mind taking shots on Corey Davis, but I also like Jonnu Smith, who I think is a nice cheap way to get a triple stack if you're looking to, or double stack, whatever you want to call it, if you're looking to do that on DraftKings, especially 4,100 for Jonnu Smith, 76 for A.J. Brown. He's expensive over here for 76, but the 41 kind of lightens that a little bit. Tannehill's at 6.2, so he's not too expensive either. I like the way that looks, so I do think I'm kind of digging that. But the highest total game on the slate, so it's something that we're going to want to pay attention to. We know the Titans games have been the nuts for the most part over the last few weeks. That game is canceled. All right. Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears. We've got a 44 total, down from 45. The Bears, currently 3-point favorites at home. Looks like they opened up as 4.5, and for some reason it went to 3. We'll talk about the Lions first, who just fired Patricia. Maybe that's why the line went down. They think they'll actually play well now that Patricia's gone. What do you like on the Lions? Anything?
Yeah. The Lions, you're going to have, hopefully we're going to have DeAndre Swift coming back. So I don't mind that. That's pretty much it. Maybe a little bit of Hawkinson. But that's it. I there's not much that I really, really like about the Lions. I think they're going to go into Chicago, and it's just going to be a decent game. It's just not going to be that. It's not going to be very, very high scoring, at least on their side. So I'm not really into much of Detroit except for DeAndre Swift. Maybe Marvin Jones or something like that, or Hawkinson, but that's it.
Yeah, I think Hawkinson is really where I'd feel the most comfortable. And I do think it'll be low owned because I think on DraftKings, I expect the Bears defense to be very popular. They're 3,100, Joe, on DraftKings. So I expect them to be popular, which means I don't think we'll see any ownership on the Lions side. I'm nervous. I think the Bears defense is respectable for sure, and I think the Detroit Lions defense is shit. So I think there's an opportunity for the Bears to actually really win this game. I'm actually surprised with the way the line moved. However, if Galladay is back and Swift is back and all this, I think the Lions offense healthy is a little bit better than what we've seen. So either way, the Bears have kind of funneled a lot of offensive production towards their tight end. They're 28th most fantasy points allowed. It's quarterbacks, 23rd to running backs, 30th to wide receivers, 6th to tight ends. So they do have an issue with the tight end. I like Hawkinson doing dirties, dropping 7s. Talk to me about the Chicago side.
The Chicago side, you're gonna be crazy. You're gonna think I'm crazy.
Trubisky.
But my GPP paydown is Mitch Trubisky. Last 4 games against the Lions, he has 12 touchdown passes. He owns the Lions at 6,900. If it wasn't a coaching change, I really would like this. But Trubisky, as in a GPP setting, if you're paying down, this is my guy. I'm just saying, he has something against the Lions. He's dominated them the last 4 times, and I think even D. Millie would say he did, and D. Millie hates the Bears. So, but I do like him a little bit. on if you're going to be paying down at quarterback. Running back, you have to, as much as you hate it, you're going to have to find value and volume somewhere, and the Lions can be run on. So David Montgomery at 6,200, I think is a cash play just to get you 10 to 12 points. He's around, I mean, he's like Price with Gallman, who's on the road against Seattle, which is a tougher matchup. So I'm just not, I don't know if I want to go there. If Booker becomes the the starter for Las Vegas, I might go there, but he's on a short list right now. If I was making a lineup, I do like David Montgomery, and then Allen Robinson at 6,900 is a great value. He's going to be involved in the passing game. He's going to be the main beneficiary. Mooney and GPPs, and that's about it. And the defense too.
Yeah, I don't mind. The more I look at it, the more I think this week, while I'm a big triple stack dude, I like to do the quarterback with 2 receiving options. If there's a week where I would lean the other way, it's a week like this where the totals aren't as high, and you're really looking, and you're not quite sure what the maximum score is. Maybe I need a little bit more from these games to kind of add up to the points that I'm looking for. I think Trubisky and Robinson is a very interesting stack for tournaments. The matchup is decent, even against Trubisky's last start. Like fantasy wise, he did well. Like for his price, I mean, 5,400 on DraftKings, he did well. He can run, and more importantly, when you want to pair him with Allen Robinson, like he went right back to just forcing the ball down Robinson's throat. I think Robinson had like 13 targets or something like that. So, I think in this matchup, they're at home. I think it all looks good. Mitch Trubisky, Robinson in tournaments. And if you're not playing them, or even if you are, I guess you could throw Montgomery as the other option. They have been throwing him the ball because they have no choice. They have nobody else to throw the ball to in the backfield. And the matchup on the ground is good. In fact, it's ironically, as bad as the choice defense is, they've given up the most fantasy points currently to the running back position. So Montgomery's playing all the snaps. 5-5 for him is looking pretty juiced on DraftKings too. Even though he sucks, and I do believe that. Well, maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it's just his team that can't run. But I'm interested in the Bears' offense, defense, everything. I don't like it, but that's the way the slate is. We're into the 4 o'clock games, Joe, or the 1 o'clock games for you West Coast folk.
There you go.
We've got the LA Rams, Arizona Cardinals. We have a 48.5 total. The Rams are currently 3-point favorites on the road. Looks like they opened up as 1-point favorites, but it's been pushed to 3. Joey, start off with the LA Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are kind of like the Raiders, I mean, as soon as you want to buy into them, they go into Tampa 2 weeks ago on Monday night and they whoop up on the Buccaneers, and then they go home and they look mortal against Seattle. Now they got to go on the road again, play Arizona. Whoever Kirkpatrick who's going to be covering, I'm going to be, Cooper Kupp. His price is down. He's just not healthy, but I feel like he's like the best play of this. I don't want anything of their running game. Trying to pick that out, even though Akers seems to be the one that's taking a hold of it, but nobody knows if they're going to go back to Henderson now. Robert Woods, obviously you can always play him. I don't mind it. Total fading Goff. You don't need Jared Goff. He's going to get you in trouble. And that's it.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those games where, like, I don't have it totally figured out just yet. Like, I don't want to completely rule Goff out. Because at the end of the day, I think a big thing with Goff is can you pressure him? And the 49ers were able to pressure him. And you saw the result. He struggled. Tampa Bay, who I thought would have been able to, was not able to pressure Goff. And he sliced him up. So I guess it comes down to what we think of the pass rush of Arizona. But I do think this game is one of the potentials to somewhat shoot out. I know the Rams haven't really shot out a ton. Their defense has been good and everything else. But this game is projected to play at a fast pace, right? The Rams have played fast this season. Arizona currently second in pace. So, yeah, I'm interested because I think the amount of plays we see in this game will be fairly high. Can't touch the running backs, none of that shit. It's just the Cooper Kupp Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds thing, and then a matter of do I want to throw Goff in and play multiple of these guys, which I think is on the table. But the price for Kupp and Woods are very interesting for tournaments, 6'1", 5'9", and even on FanDuel, 6'6", 7'1", and then Reynolds, who's 4,200 on DraftKings, also an interesting value play. But I feel like there might be something here, right? And I don't know if a ton of people are going to come to this game because the Rams games have been shit. Cardinals games have been a 50-50 toss-up. It's either the game of the night or it's a shit fest. But again, it's a common theme. I'm finding that the pieces that I like the most happen to be paying down at quarterback, or at least teams with that option. What about the Arizona side?
Yeah, Arizona side, I'm just not paying $8,700 for Kyler Murray. There's just something not right with him right now. He's still priced way too high. So yeah, that affects the whole offense. I don't mind somebody like, Kenyon Drake. He seems to be rekindling, being the number one guy, getting his magic from last year, something like that. He's getting the carries too, and it looks like Edmonds is back to his complimentary role. So I don't mind Drake. He's probably my favorite play in this game. DeAndre Hopkins going to have his hands full against Jalen Ramsey. So there's just nobody really besides Drake that I really like in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you on Murray, and maybe everybody's ownership goes low. By the way, quick shout out to Wes. Wes says 30 folks in here watching this show live. We should be at least 30 likes. Hit the like button. I appreciate it, Wes. It's a very good point you make. Also, shout out to Alib Habib, who says best DFS content out, man. Much appreciated. Much appreciated, all y'all. So going back to Kyler Murray, I'm wondering if people are going to bail on Murray because I want to. I mentioned last week the reason I didn't really like him is because I was worried about the injury. Like, I'm somebody who's had a couple shoulder surgeries and I've dealt with that kind of shit, AC joint separations, all that shit, and it sucks. It really fucking hurts, and you don't want to take a hit there. Like, you do not want to get hit there. It's like a giant bruise that takes forever to go away. And you have it right on the spot where you hit people, so it's very difficult to play with that and run while still getting hit. So that worries me about the diversification, I guess, of Kyler Murray's arsenal. I think that I do kind of like the idea of Christian Kirk because I think that with Ramsey, I mean, there's no way Ramsey's not shadowing Hopkins, right? Like, there's no way the Rams let. I know that Ramsey will come out and say he's not shadowing, he doesn't shadow, but what happened with DK Metcalf? He pretty much shadowed him the whole fucking game. So that makes me like Christian Kirk, man, because I think they're going to have to lean on him. Either that or they're going to get rolled up. So I'm kind of perplexed. When I look at a stack of this game, it's easier to stack the Rams side and then just bring back with Kirk or something like that. I am a little nervous about Hopkins. You could argue the matchup proof stuff, but Jalen Ramsey has been effective this year, man. He's been really fucking good. It's been limiting ceilings. I'll say that. But another game to dig in on, man, because these are two teams that we consider to have decent offenses. More importantly, the teams that play fast, which usually means more plays. Next up, Paulie D's New York Giants visiting the Seattle Seahawks. We have a 48 total. Seahawks currently 10-point favorites at home. The Giants, man, the Giants are in first place, man. First place, and what happens on their way to the top? Daniel Jones pulls a hammy or some shit. Talk about, and then they're left with Colt McCoy. Talk about a shitstorm. I mean, and what sucks too is this is a phenomenal spot for quarterbacks. This would have been Danny Jones that week, man, against Seattle. So I'm disappointed. Joe, talk to me about the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants, Danny Jones being hurt definitely hurts, as I think he would be pretty popular this week going up against the bad secondary of Seattle, who played decent, I guess, this last week against Carson Wentz. It's crazy. I have a friend that thinks Carson Wentz is a top 5 quarterback, and he will not get off that hill.
Does he mean financially? Because he got paid.
I know. And, it's obvious he's a Philly fan, but he will not. I'm like, I will not chastise you if you just admit that you were wrong. Just tell me you were wrong, but no, they never will. That's the one thing I will say this about Philly fans. Philly fans think that they know everything about sports. And not only you can't say anything bad about Philly sports. Only they can. It's like they're a racial like a racial, you know, I mean, you can't make fun of my own race, only I can. Literally, that's how Philly fans act, or just people in general from Philly. They think they know everything about sports. Like their opinion's right and everybody else is wrong, and they're the only ones that can criticize anything to do with Philadelphia. That's one thing I've noticed. But back to that. Yeah. What game are we on? Oh yeah, the Giants. Yeah. Giants in Seattle. I think that Gallman is, like I said, we talked about it a little bit. He's on that list. Colt McCoy, yeah, if you want to go with a million teams, maybe. I'm sure he's pretty low price on DK. FanDuel, he's low price too. Receivers, I think Ingram is probably the best play in this game from the Giants standpoint. Goddard was pretty popular last night. We saw Goddard lined up against some linebackers a couple times that he would have had a much bigger day if Wentz could have hit him on a couple passes. So I think Ingram is kind of rising. His stock is rising a little bit, so I don't mind him. But that's it on the Giants side.
Yeah, with Colt McCoy being in there, man, even in this matchup, man, there's just no way. Gallman, because you know he's going to get the work. They don't have anyone else that they feel comfortable with at the moment. It's a shame. This would have been a great spot for all. I mean, it still is a great spot for all of the wide receivers for the Giants, including Golden Tate Revenge, maybe even, who's 3,800. But with Colt McCoy, it's really hard to hang your hat on any of these guys, man, even against Seattle. And we do have other spots. I agree with you, Ingram highly in play. We saw what Goddard did. Yada yada yada. Get it with it. And I do think that these guys aren't options, man. This is the worst, one of the worst secondaries we've seen. However, they do have what's his name? Their best cornerback back. Jamal Adams, obviously fully healthy. So maybe we do see a slight improvement of their defense, at least against bad teams. And without Danny Jones, the Giants, not that I think they were a good team anyway, but they're definitely more of a bad team, I think, with Colt McCoy. So I'm a little nervous about that. But phenomenal spot. You would forget like Slayton if Danny Jones was here and all that. I'm just nervous about McCoy. What about Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited?
Yeah, I think he has been kind of limited the last 3-4 weeks. So
that was cold, Joe. He's been throttled, right? It's like the phone plans. They say you have unlimited internet, but then you go over a certain, chunk and they throttle your shit. He's been throttled a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was cooking, and now I think he might be overcooked. Like he's well done. Yeah. I like him in a GPP setting, but at 9K, he hasn't put up 9K numbers, since November 1st for a month. So he's too volatile for me to go in cash. The Giants defense is competent enough, I think, to slow them down. I mean, even Seattle hasn't been scoring like they had in the beginning of the year. Russ's numbers have gone down. The one player who has numbers who hasn't gone down is one of the best receivers in the game right now. That is DK Metcalf at 8,500. He is a great play. He's going to be, there's nobody the Giants have that can cover him the entire game. I feel like you really have seen the transition to DK being the man, the number one guy, and Lockett just being the complimentary guy. I mean, Lockett had the matchup. You guys talked about it yesterday. Lockett had the matchup, but DK was the captain. So Lockett is decent for GPPs, but DK Metcalf for cash. And especially, earlier in the year, he was getting like 4 targets for 80 yards and a touchdown. Now he's getting 13 targets, 10 catches for 177. I mean, he made value without even getting in the end zone. Imagine if he scores a touchdown, So that's where you really see the ceiling, and I love it. Nothing in the tight ends. The running game, it's weird. It's like a split with Hyde and Carson. So, man, I just don't like it, man. I just don't like. I'm just not going to go there for their price.
See, that part pisses me off because my first thought when I come here is to look at the Seattle running game. They're at home. We got positive correlation between a home favorite of more than a touchdown. against the Giants, who not that I think they're like the worst against the run, but they have allowed the ninth most fantasy points to opposing running backs, so they kind of have been a run funnel to a degree, at least from fantasy production. And the Carson Hyde thing really fucking pissed me off, man. Now, granted, Philly's a tough team to run on. Carson, I mean, I don't even know why he's back if this is the case. Carson had 25 snaps. Carlos Hyde had 41. Carson had like 8 carries. Hyde had like 15. So I don't really know what's going on. Like, if they're going back to Carson, I got no problem playing Carson. If they're going to keep Hyde with 14 carries, I'm more than happy to take a shot on Hyde simply because of the matchup and the projected game script that I'm expecting. But it does like kind of piss me off. I would assume they're gonna go back to Carson. I mean, unless we hear something about he aggravated something, I would assume they go back to Carson and his snap count comes up, and that would be good enough, I guess. But something to keep an eye on. And yeah, DK Metcalf is a man amongst boys, man. This guy is just a beast. Like 8,200, it seems kind of tough to pay for him in a game that I don't expect to be all that competitive. At the same time, like you mentioned, man, he did all that shit without a touchdown. It's tough to imagine, you know. He's just a beast. DK's a beast. You know, they got that whole thing, man. DK Metcalf and, I think Russ and Metcalf buddied up in the offseason, and Russ, invited players or wanted players to go to his little thing, and Metcalf showed up. Lockett, was busy because he's a veteran and has a family and all this. DK had nothing else to do, so he went, and now Wilson said he wants him and DK to be like the top duo. So, it sucks for Lockett, but he'll get his. We're going to roll on, Joe. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers. We've got a 47 total, down from 47.5. Packers currently 9-point favorites at home. Joe, we're going to talk about the Eagles first. Talk to me about Carson Wentz a little bit more.
I mean, what's there to say about Carson Wentz? He's just struggling. It's not all his fault. They have a terrible line. You don't need to go there at all. Just cross him off. Running back, man, I wish that they would just invest in Miles Sanders. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, his snap percentage has gone down. It was 50% last week. Like, he's got a great matchup this week, and we want to play him, but you just can't at that price. You just can't at 7,200. Boston Scott's getting almost the same amount of snap as he is right now. So, Pearson's doing his games that he said he wasn't going to do. So that means that Sanders is out to me. Wide receivers, nobody's really stepping up. The only guy that you're going to be looking at is Dallas Goedert at 6,200. He is probably the best play from Philly.
So on DraftKings, I do like Miles Sanders, and the number one, it's a PPR site, right? So every time he's able to catch a pass, I'm at least getting those points. Number two, he's 6'7", which on DraftKings isn't so steep, right? And then number three, looking at the snap share, while I do agree that the Boston Scott thing is annoying, we're not used to seeing that with Sanders. So I still feel comfortable with Sanders playing majority of the snaps, even in his latest game where they were losing a lot and they brought in Scott at the end to kind of catch more passes because Sanders couldn't catch a fucking pass to save his life. Sanders still outsnapped him 43-26. So I still feel confident on DraftKings. I'll agree with you, though, that I'm worried about how Scott's playing more. And on top of that, in last week, Sanders did drop like 3 or 4 passes, which like that's not good. Like when we, same thing with Leonard Fournette, who caught the touchdown pass this last Sunday. It was Ronald Jones, right? Because Fournette dropped 3 or 4 passes the week before. So that worries me just a little bit because one of the big things with Sanders has always been his snaps, which have gone down, and his targets, which have now been getting into. But I think on DraftKings, because the matchup is so good, I'm willing to take a shot on a guy that's playing majority of the snaps, and that's Sanders this week. The passing game's a shit show. I mean, I don't even have. I got to adjust Alshon Jeffrey's projection, and there's still between Fulgham, Rager, it's just kind of a shit show, and it's really just Sanders for me, to be honest. I don't mind Goddard, but it's mainly Sanders. This has been a clear run funnel defense, even in trailing game scripts. What about the Packers side?
Yeah, Packers, obviously you can always go to Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be throwing. The running game for the Packers is a shit show. I can't tell you who's going to get the ball, if it's going to be Jones or Williams, so just avoid it. They're both, I mean, I'd go with Williams just because he's 5,200 and he's getting, almost he got 17 carries last week. What the hell? I mean, if you're an Aaron Jones owner, like you're literally like, what the hell? Like honestly, they both got 17 carries. Like screw it. Like I'm just you can't go there. I'll go to Williams. Probably Devontae Adams is. I think maybe of all the pay up options, he might be the best out of Cook, Henry, and Adams. I think Cook. I think Adams is the best out of all of them. We saw what the man-child DK Metcalf did against Darius Slay. Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league right now, so I think he can do just the same. And then I like the Green Bay defense. We know that the offensive line for Philadelphia is terrible, and they're going to give up sacks. And we also know Carson is good for a pick or two.
It's strange that DraftKings raised the price on Adams so much. Like, it was kind of like against the Bears, he was 83. Against the Colts, he was 86. Against Jacksonville, he was 9. He didn't really pay off his salary on any of those days. Like, he had a pretty good game against the Colts. And he's never done bad, right? I guess you're paying for the floor. But I do agree with you, man. I think that that Slay, while I respect him against mediocre type positions, like clearly, man, like he got destroyed by Metcalf, and I think that Adams, while he's a different receiver, I think is still good. Now, the other aspect to that, or I guess the contrary belief to that would be, well, maybe it's because DK Metcalf is such a freak. Like, he's a freak. He's fucking huge. He's strong, and he's fast as shit. Devontae Adams, very athletic, all that stuff, but he is nowhere near the muscular, strength of a guy like DK Metcalf. So maybe Slave fares better, but Joe, I think Adams might end up coming in lower owned than maybe Cook or Henry. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe people pay down that running back so they can afford to get Adams. But I do think that Adams is very interesting. And if he falls below in ownership, I want to keep an eye on that 9K. I'm already convinced that like we're gonna need one of these 9K guys, right? With Cook, Henry, whoever, and I got my eye on Adams, especially if I'm paying down everywhere. I like that call a lot, man. I do. Also, don't mind Lazard. Rodgers built up some pretty good chemistry with him. We know he liked him last year. He had a chance to play with him in the offseason more, and now before Lazard got hurt, he was getting targets and everything, so I'm okay with him too. But Adams, I agree with. I do have interest there. And I guess you could throw Rodgers in that mix, though I prefer to pay down a quarterback, I think, this week. Last game, Joe, we've got the New England Patriots and your Los Angeles Chargers.
Los Angeles Chargers.
Boy. 49 was the open, 47 where it sits. The Patriots opened up as 1.5-point underdogs. They're now 1-point favorites. I have no idea why, but maybe you do. Talk to me about the Patriots.
It flipped. It started off with the Chargers being 1.5-point favorites, and now it's the Patriots. So I don't really know, except for if the Patriots have one advantage, it's at coach. He is a head and shoulder better coach than Anthony Lynn, who does not know how to manage the game. He is on his way out. I feel bad. It's not all of his fault. The Patriots, it's really tough to know who's going to go where and what. I mean, Cam is 7,500. I'm not really into him. The running game, Damian Harris is fine. James White, I think I prefer more. We saw he had a better game last week. Wide receivers, Jacoby Myers is fine. He did what we needed, but he wasn't anything great. It's just tough to find any really consistent production out of this Patriots offense.
Yeah, it's just too difficult to pinpoint, right? I'm with you. On the flip side, this defense has been bad. So, and the Chargers have played at a pretty fast pace. So you feel like you want something. I guess maybe I shouldn't be so quick to rule out Cam Newton because of his price. He's looked like shit, but we've seen even the Jets were able to score points on these guys. So maybe I shouldn't discount Cam Newton so much, especially if I am looking to pay down a quarterback because he is cheap on DraftKings, and obviously we know he runs. And then I guess Myers is the guy I still want to believe is going to be the number one. We've seen Bird kind of pop in and steal some targets and all that, but I think Myers would be the preferred option. But maybe I shouldn't discount them out completely, out of the bias of thinking that the Patriots' offense is not good, even though I don't think they are. What about the Chargers side, Joe?
The Chargers side, I think Herbert, I'm finally kind of getting on that. He might be in the cash game consideration. Made some mistakes last week, but I feel like he's going to come back. We know that you can. The Patriots, defense is not very good at all. So even in a bad game, he still put up 18 points, which I can take. And the two plays from this game, I think, Austin Eckler, we need to get on this train before the price really goes up. He's $7K on FanDuel. What's his price on DK?
He's 7-1.
Wow, they've priced him up already. Yeah. But for a PPR site, I mean, he's like CMC was. So I feel like Herbert has learned to dump it off to Eckler, and we've seen it. So to me, I am all for Eckler. And then receivers, it's probably, I'd probably say it's, Keenan Allen, but I honestly think that they're going to try and take him away. So you're going to have to look towards like Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry has quietly gotten, had 10 targets last week, had 7 targets the week before. Like he's pretty much guaranteed 7 to 10 targets a game. So I don't mind him as like a pivot off of like Goddard or Ingram, which I think most people are going to go to.
Yeah, the Patriots have just been death to fantasy, man. Like we saw last week, even against a fast-paced Cardinals team, they managed to slow the game down. That worries me a little bit. I think Herbert is fine. I just don't like the price. Eckler's price has gotten up to where it's not a slam dunk anymore, though the usage was out of control and awesome. I think Eckler's presence is going to hurt Keenan Allen a little bit. There's just not a ton. I'm with you on the Hunter Henry because he's cheap, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time really liking too much on the Chargers side. It's funny because I think at this point I kind of like the Cam side more. It's all about pricing. It's really all it is. And at this point, the Chargers pricing, I don't necessarily feel great about. Mike Williams, 4,800, don't mind that, especially with Herbert at home. But I don't know. I'll dig into it. Maybe I buy in more. And it's nothing against the Chargers, Joe. I had no problem playing the Chargers against the Jets or anything like that. But it's just the New England Patriots, man. They have a knack for just destroying games and just making shit suck. And that's gonna do it, Joe. We covered it. Nation, don't forget the Listener League is in the description below. If you're listening on Podbean or iTunes, it's there also. FanDuel and DraftKings, go join it. FanDuel's limited to 20 people. It's free to get in. The winner gets $25 on each site. So get in there, do dirties. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll be trying to do it if the Wednesday game goes. I'm gonna try to do a stream like an hour before or so. If Paulie's free, we'll hop on. If not, we'll do a solo. I'm going to try if I have time. Either way, I will post the projections for the showdown slate. So keep an eye out for that. If the game gets canceled, obviously no show. And then Friday, we'll be back with the NFL Wise stream. Basketball's around the corner. We got the Black Friday deal going up for that. So make sure you get over there and take advantage of our Black Friday sale for the NBA package. You get an opportunity to get the full NBA season for $69.99, and we may even tag in some NFL stuff along the way while you're waiting. So make sure you get over there, take advantage of it. I think on our Twitter you can get all the information at @wise_take. I think the promo code is BLKFRI 2020, Black Friday 2020. It ends on the 2nd, so I think this is literally, if you're listening to this on time, this is probably like the last day to get it. So make sure you go in there and get it. Shout out to Josh Jennings for the super chat, $5. We appreciate it, bro. Josh wants to know who was our favorite sleeper and value play of the week. Much appreciated, fellas. So who would you say as of right now? It's hard to tell. We don't have ownership projections, Josh, so come back on the Y stream, but we'll try our best to answer it since you were so generous. Who would you say is your favorite sleeper play or value play so far?
I mean, I'm going with FanDuel. Damn. It's tough. The guy that maybe stands out right now is Devontae Booker, assuming that Jacobs doesn't play.
Mm.
That's my. He's 6K on FanDuel, and he's pretty cheap. Everywhere else. What about you?
I want to go for DraftKings. I want to go with a Jacksonville Jaguar. The problem is I don't know which one just yet because of injuries. If Chark is out, I'm actually fine going back to what's his name, the practice squad dude, Johnson. But if Chark is back in, then I do think I think Chark is fine. I think that a Laviska Shenault or something like that, I would go with for the value. Again, it's real early. We don't have a ton. What about like I guess he says sleeper play. So what about like just a low owned play in general?
A low play in general. I don't mind going back to like somebody who busted the week before really big. Let's go with like. I'm gonna go with like Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. I'll go with Darren Waller. Well, he's like a tight end is tough because there's just not a lot of tight ends. So maybe I won't go with Waller. He would be the easy way out. Let me think about this for just a second. I'll go. The problem is I don't know just yet. I don't have a pulse of who's going to be popular, but I do like Miles Sanders, and he's somebody who busted on the showdown slate prime time in front of everybody. So I'll roll with him.
And he has a great matchup too. Like I wish that they would just like they're not going to be able to get in a shootout with the Packers. Like you're going to try and run the ball. Like,
you have no choice. That's all you're going to be able to do, especially them because they're fucking terrible.
Doesn't make sense. Yes.
Josh does like the cup call. Shout out to you, Josh. Much appreciated. Hit the like button if you haven't already. We're going to get up out of here. Joe, anything in closing before we roll?
Not much, man. Enjoy Wednesday afternoon football. It might not ever happen again. Hopefully it goes, too.
Hopefully. We'll see what happens. Part of me hopes they cancel the slate at this point because, it's, I mean, not the slate, but the game because it's just, I don't know. But we'll see. Hopefully, in all seriousness, hopefully they play because it'd be nice to watch some football. Like you said, maybe the only time we ever get it. For Patio Joe, from myself, the entire Wise Sig Nation, as always, good luck.
Peace.
Yeah.